Hello and welcome into the KE Report. Shad and Corey here as your host, and we're getting an update today from Silver Tiger Metals. Silver Tiger is traded on the TSX.V under the ticker SLVR and on the OTCQX under the ticker SLVTF. We're joined today with the president and CEO of Silver Tiger Metals, Glenn Jessome, live on location in Switzerland from the Swiss Mining Institute. So, Glenn, I want to kick it off with just your key takeaways. What is the vibe on the ground like in Europe? What is their take on gold breaking to $3,000 in US? What's the vibe at the Swiss Mining Institute?
Look, guys, it's great to hear from you. Thanks for having me on. It's extremely, excitement is too much of a word, but buoyant enthusiasm is one I'd use. We come to Zurich twice a year. We have a lot of institutions invested in us here. Family also invested in our company from here. So it's a regular place, and something's changed in the sentiment. It's absolutely incredible, and especially people seeking out Mexico right now. Guys who've never heard about Mexico, talked about Mexico, invested in Mexico, are just drawn right to us and want a meeting. And they want to talk about Mexico and what's going on there, the improvement in sentiment, and of course about the El Tigre mine we're going to build. It's been nonstop. I have had Think about this. I had 17 meetings yesterday, all a half hour, and I had 15 today, plus did a presentation in the morning to a packed room. So yeah, we're very pleased with the uptake and the reception we've received at the Swiss Mining Institute this year.
Glenn, in terms of the bigger investors, funds, those type of organizations that are focused in the sector, what are you hearing from them? Are they starting to see some more interest in terms of money coming into the funds?
A great question. And I'm a little road weary. I think, Chad, I saw you in Vancouver for MIF and VRIC. I've been on the road ever since. Market in the States, BMO, right into PDAC, home for a cup of coffee, and then over to Europe. And we started to hear about it probably even at Vancouver, definitely at BMO through PDAC, but incredibly here from the largest institutions that have invested in us, from the family offices, from the very sophisticated high net worth managers, and really including those debt providers, specialist resource debt providers that lend to companies like myself when they go to build a project. They've not seen inflows like this in years and years. Some of them are what are we going to do with this money? And so extremely positive to hear that. The reason why it's been years since that's happened gives me great faith that, look, we see a great metals price. I never focused on the metals price. You guys know that. It's so incredible right now as someone who's going to build a silver mine, the money we're going to make at 2,500 and 30 at 3,000 and 34, 35. If it gets any better, I'll bust. But what this tells me is this has got legs for some long term. These funds don't put their money in for a month. They put it in because they've analyzed and said, you know what? We need to deploy more money in the precious metal sector, and they are doing it at record rates. And I think we got some real legs on this one, guys. It's a different message.
Glenn, just a quick follow-up on that. Are you noticing any difference in European funds versus, let's say, Canadian or US funds? Do you notice any difference in sentiment, any difference in the kind of stocks that they're positioning in these funds?
I wouldn't say there's a great difference across the board at all. But what I would say is that, the European funds are a little less versed in investing in European mining companies. They like the venture exchange and the fact that it's the leading resource exchange in the world. But boy, what I'm seeing here is and maybe it's no higher sentiment than North American investors, but it's at the level, which means it's increased. So yeah, I do see a ton of interest, and I see a ton of interest in really investing in Mexico. That's a long leap for some of these guys. And we're being found out here for the last 2 or 3 days. I mean, I got people walking up that don't even have an appointment with me and asking if while I'm presenting to some fund, two or three of them can just listen in. That hasn't happened in the past. So it's definitely a raised level of awareness, interest, and potential for investment.
Any insights on these funds' risk tolerance in terms of if they're focused on now just producers or soon to be producers, or if they are looking further down the food chain?
I think what I'd say to that is the following. I think a lot of these large funds love producers. But I went to a panel the other day, which had some experts on it, and some of the guys who basically, one guy said, "Look, I only invest in producers until now. I am widening my risk tolerance. And, I had a smile on my face because he said, I'm looking for the next developer that's going to build their mine now. I felt like putting my hand up and waving, but I didn't. But I did talk to the guy later. So I think that they're really stepping down. Early exploration, I can't speak to that. That's not who we are. But boy, a strong message that, the alpha return you see from the bottom of the Lassonde curve when a company starts to build to the very top. I mean, that's an alpha return. And, that's where we find ourselves. So yes, there's a lot of interest from across the board from all the institutions in our type of company.
Okay, Glenn, well, let's rotate down to Mexico. Like you say, it's maybe a jump for some European investors, but it's not a jump for domestic listeners here in Canada and the U.S. There's a lot going on the ground. We've talked about it in previous episodes about the permitting, but there was some big news that broke at PDAC, and it was really,
Absolutely.
I think it's important for people just to get the framework that this government's operating from. So share that with us.
Well, yeah, that's a little bit of old news, but it seems like a month ago. It wasn't. I think it was the Tuesday at PDAC, whatever the date was, that the Mexican government had a full group of people attend PDAC. They had their own full facility at PDAC where talks about Mexico speeches. High-end, high-level government officials were there. I spent a lot of time there, and the keynote speech that was given there, maybe that's what you're referring to, was given by. We would think of him. It's a longer and different title. I don't have it word for word right now. Extractive minerals, but we would think of that person as being the Minister of Mining in Canada. And that gentleman's name is Mr. Aboitiz, a very smart guy, a fantastic leader for the mining sector. And he gave the keynote speech on that Tuesday. It was a packed room. I don't know if there was 1,000 there or 500, but it was a big room. And it was a very straightforward message. I was there. I don't want to be paraphrasing the Minister of Mining from Mexico, so I would steer you to a lot of the press covered this, and there's some really good articles that do a much better job than in basically outlining exactly what he said, because they were there and wrote up this long speech. You can find that, and I'd recommend you find one of those, get it out with a link to your people so they can read in detail. But the gist of it was as follows. Look, mining investment by foreign companies in Mexico is safe. We want more exploration. We're going to be granting more exploration permits so that we can find more metals within our country and have our country benefit in that exploitation. It was very important that he said point blank that the ban on open pit mining is not on the table. And he went on to further state, don't quote me exactly, but the gist was an open pit permit we consider the same now in Mexico as an underground permit. He went as far as to say, we are issuing amendment permits. We see lots of those coming. There will be more. And we have a list of new permits that we're finalizing the work on, and they will be issued also. So a very positive message. I don't want to paraphrase or quote Mr. Aboitiz, the minister, anymore. I think you should find that article. It was very well done. I think it was the Mexico Mining Journal or something like that. And if you wanted to provide the link to that, it's 2 or 3 pages of detail. And it was very, very, very well done and represented the speech very well, much better than I could. A very positive message is the point.
So, Glenn, we are hearing this recap that Mexico is much more open for business under this new leadership. Just remind everyone where Silver Tiger is in this whole permitting thing. What Silver Tiger still needs?
We're done. I can tell everybody that we're done now as far as anything we need to do to get our permit. We're waiting. We expect to get it very soon. And what I've done is basically, which would be a little bit of new news to some of your viewers, is I spent the last 6 or 8 months. The capex in this is very low. It's 86 million, but I still need the capex. So I've been successful in obtaining 3 term sheets from three very frontline resource lenders. Each of those are for $100 million, and I'm doing my work on those so that I can choose the $100 million debt package that is the appropriate one for Silver Tiger. And I have term sheets on those. That's taken a lot of my time. So when that permit comes, I'll be ready. I can tell you that Francisco Albalez, our COO, is the first 3 months when that permit drops, he's given me a list probably 50 pages long of everything he needs to do to get going. So he's ready. And that's exciting. But we're not sitting on our hands, guys. I'm going to come with the PEA for the underground, which we've been working on in the background for 2.5 years. And my team is telling me June, but I'm going to tell you I hope to have it in May, which is what, a month or two from now. So you'll see the first economic study on that high grade underground. Matching it up to the 800 ton per day mill I've already bought and have on the mountain, and the permit that I have to go with that. So that's exciting. And, we are underground, and we're drilling some of the high grade veins, shale and sulfide zone. I put some results out a couple of weeks on that, and, we're going to drill some more holes and get some more drill results out. So we never stop. It's door number one is build the open pit. And as soon as that open pit is built and in production and generating, at spot prices today, guys, I looked at my sensitivity table. That pit at spot prices today makes over 60 million USD after tax free cash flow a year. Incredible in that $86 million US investment to get that thing built. So we're excited to get that done. And then, of course, by the time that's producing and producing cash flow, we're going to use that money to build the underground. So that means my PEA PFS sometime late 2026. So when I get this thing in production, we're ready to go underground and bolt that high grade underground deposit onto the production profile for Tiger. So we're busy.
Well, Glenn, I think we'll wrap it up there for now. I know you got to get to another dinner here at the conference.
Absolutely.
And that was a nice recap of all the news on tap. For those listening in, if you want to follow along with all the drill news as it keeps coming out and development work and economic studies, it's going to be a full slate of news from the Tiger. Definitely click on the link below this interview. It takes you over to the Silver Tiger website, straight to their news section where you can follow along or sign up for updates. Glenn, keep us posted as you always do. We'll get you back on for an update. Have a great rest of the conference, and thanks for weighing in on the sentiment in Europe and also how things are going in Mexico. As always, looking forward to our next conversation.
Always a pleasure to talk to you, fine gentlemen. Thank you for having me on, guys. Have a great night.